Welcome to Insights. I'm Eric. Thanks for stopping by. We're going to talk about wheat and corn today in terms of a grains review, and that probably includes soybeans in response to the poll that we did out on social media. That had some participation. We had 72 votes, and it's not bad. It's really nothing in comparison to what takes place on social media. But we're a knowledge site, not entertainment. Entertainment gets votes. Knowledge gets thrown in the garbage can because people really don't want to know. But I suspect the corn and soybean markets or trends are going to provide some stiff education out there for people. Some of the initial cursory examples of what we see on social media. Understanding of trends is far too simplistic. It's not to blame the individuals. It's these markets are complex, but it's kind of showing up and being unprepared to really follow the invisible hand, and that's what we're all about. So today we're going to try and introduce some concepts that will things that we talk about in the corn, soybeans, wheat, and all the reports that we have offer in insights. It is the complexity that's here. We try and take the complexity that the computer spits out and talk about it in terms that people can understand things of just don't fight the primary trend and what is the primary trend and what is the composite trend and the alignment, triple up, triple down, things of that nature. Corn and wheat, which we were asking about, over 51% think the primary trend is going to turn in a matter of days or weeks. But that's not something that normally takes place. Corn's primary trend flipped down March 31st, wheat 6 months ago. So this is really 2 months. It's been down for about a month. So we got about a month, and this is about 5 months. These are not new trends. So all the declines that are taking place, this is something that should have not been a surprise. And I'm sure by the reaction and seeing what's taking place in terms of the price, and I had talked about it in some of the report updates. This is a surprise to the vast majority. That's how the majority operates. They are unaware of the fractal natures of trends, how energy plays out. We had talked about how retail traders needed to be flushed in wheat and things of that nature. So there's a lot of shock and surprise, and I think they deal with it by believing that these trends will flip over and return back to what they believe in a short period of time. But this is not what the case is, and we're going to talk about that briefly in this grains review update. So the primary trends, they're down. You can see them here. They're not shaded. This is the primary trend for wheat. And when they're up, it's green. And when they're down, it's unshaded. Now, the real question is, how long do these primary trends last? And yes, they follow cycles, price, and time. We're going to address that in a little bit. But one of the things that we want to introduce too is that there is a possibility that you're going to get, once you get people caught on the wrong side of a trade, that you will have a waterfall decline. There's many examples, some discussions about that. The concept gets thrown around out there on social media and the internet. I don't think people really understand what waterfall decline is. And here's a probably most recent example, and this is about 2011. There's others, and you could find them. This is one of the smaller ones, but it's really when prices go straight down. And these are placed in comparable time sequences. And here's wheat. If you establish a power waterfall decline or a power decline, we're not even quite there yet. I mean, you're talking about a bottom in days or weeks. Well, the price collapsed. And then look at what happened. It took months for the price to recover after the initial waterfall decline. And again, this was a minor waterfall decline in comparison to some of the historical observations that are out there. I mean, they can get big and they can be extremely powerful. And the real question is do these markets, wheat and corn, have enough separation or enough imbalance behind them in order to create a flush? We talked about the wheat in a flush in the wheat report for many months, and I bet you people got lulled to sleep by it or ignored it, but the flushes take place when there's an enormous imbalance that takes place behind the scenes. We talk about these imbalances oftentimes in terms of these energy builds. I'm going to remove this here. The energy builds, which are located here in the matrix from K, L, and M columns. And for wheat, they're 79, -5, and 0. This information here doesn't reveal as much as when we look in the subcomponents of the energy build. And this is stuff we do talk about Uh, and here we have it for wheat. Waterfall declines are powered by these energy builds. It's the imbalance. When you know a market is vulnerable and it falls below some reversals, we call them lines in the sand, which then sometimes price slips into an air pocket. And these are all things that are taking place. Again, these are complicated discussions that are probably better handled in the reports. And I suggest that if everyone wants to get more familiar with them, to subscribe to these reports and just watch them. There's numerous video updates in the reports that we talk about these concepts. Wheat has entered, and I can't remember, but it could be in the process of entering an air pocket. When you get into an air pocket, and a very good example of that is probably not in the grain market right now, but in the sugar market, as a classic pocket, which we talked about in the sugar report. And price moves very quickly, and if once these prices get into these air pockets, and corn could be vulnerable into that, or should be slipping into that soon. The real question is there fuel there? And again, I don't expect everyone to understand these concepts immediately, but inside energy builds, or DIs, there's different players, and this is one aspect of that distribution. And what you're looking for is a packing. If the groups, the smart money, and call them smart and dumb money, are on the wrong side of the trade and they're tightly standing together, when you hit an air pocket, the weaker hands get flushed out and you create separation. It's going to pull these two series away. In the corn market, which is right here, these two series are too close to each other, or not as close to each other. They're separating, so there's not as much fuel. But wheat is extremely vulnerable because the smart and dumb money is standing together, and someone's going to win. And that someone who usually wins is the one with deeper pockets. It's not retail. We have long said that the retail trader is going to get stretchered out the front door of the trading floor. And that is what's taking place. We called this long before the event because it was obvious. We've done this a while. I've seen this in other markets other than wheat, and they were standing too close. They're going to have to separate. There's some separation here, but when it gets real bad, the separation will be maximum. The blue will be way up here, and the yellow will be way down here, and you'll see it in the DI, and we'll talk about it. But we have no separation in wheat. It is that lack of separation that makes the potential for a waterfall decline, which will not obey the rules of technical analysis that everyone cites and adheres to on social media and the internet. It'll ignore that because the fuel will consume. It's kind of like burning gasoline. It'll burn hot and fast until it's all gone. And then when it's gone, everybody will stand and say, well, how did this happen? This is waterfall decline. I don't even understand we're in the middle of it. I'm saying we have enough fuel to produce a waterfall decline in wheat. Can easily happen. This is not something that you're making a bet on. Wheat has been a play to the short side for 6 months, and it's down 26%, or it's up in its profits for the short. It could get more because there's a right setup. Now we're going to look at this again on Friday to see if this has changed. But fuel's on the table, and it's even there for corn. With that amount of fuel, when we asked in the poll, is this going to be resolved in days or weeks? You're going to take days and weeks to create the waterfall decline. And then after that, all the damage that's done in the primary trend, and we're going to talk about that right now. So it is this understanding. They think everybody believes more than 50% of people believe this is going to be resolved pretty quickly. But we've said that the lead M, once the damage is done, here's the counts through 1950. This doesn't even account for the historical trends. Our computer tracks wheat back to 1840s, or maybe it's even going back to 1820. I can't remember. There's 41 impulses through 1959. Most people think they're doing diligent analysis if they're studying trends back to 2000. But there's 41 bear counts, 8 of them aborted after 1, so it's a pretty volatile market. But in general, 20% decline to the downside, and then they average 10 months. If you go back and look here, we're 6 months into this. There's 4 months until we reach the cyclical mean for the downturn. This is standard stuff, but this is a volatile cycle as well. It can be pushed. Maximum downtrend is 64 months. And the bearish impulses it's crazy. Actually, it's not 20% to the downside. It's 33% to the downside. Maximum average, which is the maximum average within the cycle, is 40. There's a 250% decline somewhere in there. computer's all fully aware of this, and that's why it looks at all these things. And it's the last thing it pointed out was a reset. This is triple down. It's mid-cycle, which is not an extremely terrible, but this was early cycle, a lot longer. This is why people are making money on this. The principles that we apply to the grain markets apply to all markets that are tracked in the matrix, and all these blank areas and say are different markets inside the matrix, different groups that we track. They apply. I think people who are feeling that corn's going to rally because sometime we're entering seasonal strength through May. I think they're fooling themselves. I mean, the grain, the corn market doesn't have quite as much separation. But this number can be up 100, and this number can be 0, and there's still fuel there to provide some downside force, and yet that will create a varying degree of a waterfall decline. And the real question, which I'm not going to address here, is where's the reversals go? Are we going to fall into an air pocket? If you fall into an air pocket with corn or wheat, and inside of these downward arrows, and this is not to imply this is going to happen, you're going to get into what they call fast market conditions. That's when there's no physical resistance that exists, some supply or demand, which we call volume. I mean, the computer calls it. The computer tracks this. This is why we use the computer. If you have trouble figuring this stuff out, that's why we have the report, so I can discuss it for everyone. In time, you will learn that this stuff tracks the invisible hand, and that's the underlying force behind all of this. It's not defined by traditional technical analysis, and it's not defined by things that people most often talk about on the internet. And that's why waterfall declines come out of nowhere and surprise the heck out of people. These are all possibilities, and this is a real possibility because there's not enough separation between the components that define energy. If we see this and there's still some left after Friday and after next week, this will continue. This will continue until it exhausts itself, and it exhausts the people who are trading it. And in general, we have described these conditions as a flush. It will carry every retail investor out the front door of the trading floor, whether it's physical or virtual, and that's how things work. I just want people to be aware that following the invisible hand is not unbelievably complex, but it's far more difficult than it's being portrayed on the internet. This is the difference between entertainment and knowledge. Knowledge is hard work. Entertainment is, you know what that is. It's out there. You're making people laugh. You can make people laugh when you realize, like, wow, I didn't know that I could avoid this, or I didn't know that markets could rally so much when they actually do. And that's different type. This is not entertainment. This is following the invisible hand. It's strict business. It takes years and years of experience, and it takes a computer that we've defined here in the matrix in order to track this stuff. And that's what we wanted to introduce. I mean, we wanted to see where the people stood. The poll reminded us that people in general are still 50-50. They haven't been stretchered out. I wish we could get a poll and have 1,000 votes or 100,000 votes. Then you'd have a real good idea where the majority is. Random samples only 20 people anyways, and our following's limited because we don't get much exposure. Trading and understanding is not a real goal. It's not a form of entertainment, so that's not probably what everyone out on social media is seeking. But in the end, the question is did you know that these markets could enter a waterfall decline? Are they vulnerable? Did you see it happen beforehand? And did anyone talk about it? This is why we want to introduce these concepts so people will be aware. And I think at this point of the game, when it flushes out, if wheat flushes out or corn flushes out, although corn won't be technically the same as a flush as wheat, did you know it was there? Were you prepared? And do you know when it's ended? And do you know when it's time to say, hey, maybe this is an opportunity? Thanks for watching today's review. I hope this clarifies some of the ideas that are out there, some of the ideas that the matrix and our computer represents, and some of the things that we talk about in reports. We also, if you have any questions or comments, let us know. You can contact us directly, or you can reach out to us on social media. It doesn't matter. Thanks everyone participating within the poll, and I hope this type of response helps people better understand, so that the next time they don't get caught scratching their heads and seeing the eyes through fear and ego rather than just truly following the visible hand.